Welcome back. The Climate Justice Coalition and Workers' Union GIWUSA will march in Tshwane next week against what they describe as racist load reduction by Eskom in the country. This comes as South Africa is battling its worst load shedding ever. Now, for more on this, we are joined by GIWUSA President Mametlwe Sebei. Dr. Sebei, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Now, let's begin by establishing the difference between the two. Load shedding is controlled, scheduled blackouts that take place across the country when there's not enough capacity to generate electricity, whereas load reduction is implemented to reduce the usage in order to protect Eskom's infrastructure. Is that right?
Yes. So basically with load shedding is when Eskom says, well, this number of, gigawatts that we want to be able to, cut from our load, and is going to be implemented in a way that, affects everybody. Now, when we are dealing with the issue of load reduction, is a policy that was actually introduced around 2020, when we are seeing that it is targeted at particular communities with a view, basically, to reduce the load in a way that actually says, well, these are communities that are not likely to pay. These are communities that, we feel that if we target, they will not be impacted much. But when you look at what those areas and the criteria that is being used, it actually affects disproportionately black working class areas.
So what do you then find as racist? Is it in the selection of these areas, and what is that criteria, as you say, in terms of how they are selected?
Yes, they say, well, this is Soweto. When you are dealing with Soweto, we know that Soweto, unlike, for instance, your Winchester Hills, unlike your Sandton, is most not likely to pay. And sometimes they use that also to penalize communities that are called to be non-compliant, right? And the problem with that is that it just becomes a blanket blackout that target people in that particular specific communities. And you can see with load shedding, whereas is about 1 or 2 hours, these communities that are targeted through this load reduction policy, they are actually load shedded for hours without end, sometimes almost half and a whole day. So this is a problem that we are seeing, that it is inherently racist, and this is on top of many other problems that were already affecting these communities in a very racially discriminatory manner, because even, sometimes there are issues of, the maintenance of the infrastructure, the transformers, when they are damaged, when they burst. If you are staying in Sandton, if you are staying in a middle class area, that is likely to be fixed within, a day or two. In these areas, and particularly as a conscious and deliberate policy of reducing the load, they leave this to go on for weeks unattended. And that is in addition, again, here on the fact that reality, both, electricity tariffs, as well as even the load shedding itself, does not proportionally affect us the same way. When you have the money to, procure alternative power and energy sources like, generators, like solar panels and other things, right? You are in a better position to respond and, of course, to insulate yourself from load shedding. When you are earning a social grant, when you are earning 5,000, 5,700, which is a wage of 75% of the workers in this country, 1,000 to 2,000 electricity bill has an implication far devastating than when, for instance, you are on a wage or salary of 40,000 or 50,000, and if you, of course, a capitalist, you are earning somewhere in the regions of millions in profits and all of that. So all of this is what we call energy racism, and we are saying that Eskom must be held to account for that. We want energy justice, and for us, that includes how poor people access energy in a way that is affordable, in a way that is accessible, but also issues of just transition to clean, renewable, and sustainable energy.
However, Sebei, Eskom does explain that the selection of these areas is based on the increase of illegal connections in these highly dense areas. Is that not a criteria enough for them to then implement this policy without us looking at it from a racial point of view?
So when they target the whole of Soweto, I mean, University of Johannesburg did a study in Pilville in Soweto where it shows they target that area precisely for those reasons. Now, it doesn't matter whether you pay or not, right? So just by virtue, mainly of being black, because the people that stays in those areas are black. Even if you pay, simply because you stay in a black working class poor area where there are people who are defaulting on their payments, where in some neighborhoods there are issues of illegal connections, you are just likely to be at the receiving end of that deliberate and relentless, load sheddings that are targeted in that particular manner. That is a problem. And we are saying that how do you then just penalize whole communities on the basis of the issues of illegal connection? But also even illegal connections, we must begin to contextualize it, right? We have a situation here where since 2007, electricity tariffs have increased by over 743%. Even if you minus over 160% in inflation in that whole period, you are still left with astronomical levels of increases in electricity tariffs. Now, we have always been saying the pockets of the working class are not a bottomless pit where you can just keep digging without an end. The issues, illegal connections that we are talking about, these, for the most part, are honest, law-abiding people who are left with no alternatives but to resort to those illegal connections just to keep their families warmed, just to keep their families, electrified in the absence of any alternative and where they've been priced out of affordability of basic electricity supply.
So differently put, Eskom is contributing to these illegal connections with the high tariffs that are imposed on ordinary South Africans.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at the rate at which tariffs have been increasing, as I've said, 760-something% since 2007, and you look what has been the rate at which wages have been increasing. We are living in a country with over 12.4 million people that are unemployed. Of those that are employed, 75% of them are earning 5,800. Now, in this situation, where even of the pitiful amount that they are earning, they still have to spend about 30% of their income on transport. They have to spend huge amounts and proportion of their income on food and other basic amenities. Now, the life of the working class in this country is a constant hassle and juggling between impossible choices and priorities. And when you have a situation wherein Eskom just keep increasing to fund what? To fund special tariffs for the big mining companies and, of course, smelters that are being charged, me and you actually, are paying on average 10 times what big companies with special tariff agreements are paying. And these are multi-billion corporations that we are subsidizing. We are funding corruption and plundering of Eskom that is, a staggering tens of billions of rands that we've heard about as Zondo Commission, but a lot of it is not even talked about. So this is a reality, and we are saying Eskom is responsible for systematic and, in fact, criminalization of otherwise an honest, decent, normally law-abiding people in this country.
So how then do you believe the transition to renewable energy will impact on these disadvantaged communities and possibly not then seeing load reduction in the near future?
Firstly, we can't negotiate the issue of transition. The very survival of humanity depends on it. That actually must have happened as seen of yesterday. And we are actually saying the delegation that is there at COP27 doesn't represent South Africa. What are those people? Those are big mining companies and other big polluters that are responsible for a big share of the pollution in this country. What we are saying is that we need to harness a vast and enormous solar and wind power in this country. We have one of the longest coastal lines, right, with an unlimited, if you like, wind power that we are not harnessing. We are living in a country with an all year round, sunshine in some areas, whether it's winter, summer, autumn, whatever. These are resources that we must harness. These are resources that can ensure a sustainable and, in fact, universal access to energy for many working class people in a way that actually we can do it without harming the planet, without harming the environment, which is the reason that we are having an increasing disasters in the form of floods that have devastated KZN, 3 times in the past 5 years, in the form of droughts that engulfed this country for almost half a decade until 3 years ago, in a form of increasing, increasing, disasters that are becoming more recurrent and more extreme and intensive in their impact, and particularly on the poor and the working class that are most vulnerable.
Now, your march to Tshwane was meant to take place tomorrow. It has since now been postponed. What do you hope to achieve with this march?
And I mean, the fact that we had to postpone the march because of the warning of severe weather, including a storm itself, is not only ironical, but, is a testament to how this country is becoming, a disaster. But the message that we wanted to send is that the people, the working class of this country are becoming energy poor. One of the biggest achievements of transition to democracy was electrification. But in a situation wherein people are being priced out of access to electricity, in a situation wherein there is relentless load sheddings and load reductions that we have already spoken about that are targeted particularly on black working class communities, in a situation where, of course, there are all these crises, it means we have been brought back. We are beginning to see a side of, black women collecting wood and other things that we thought they belonged in the past. Now, what we wanted to say is that this issue of energy poverty must be resolved. And how do you resolve it? It must be on the basis of energy justice that is accessible to a basic supply of electricity on free basis for the working class, for the poor. And the way to go about that, make sure that energy-intensive users like smelters, like big mining companies, pay not only their fair share, in fact, pay in such a way that they can subsidize a free basic electricity for the poor. We are saying that, roll out infrastructure for a clean energy supply. And in the course of that, you can do what, researchers have pointed out. It can be a massive program of public works, which can create up to 1 million jobs, which they've computed and which we believe is credible alternative to a crisis, firstly of energy, a crisis of climate, but also a crisis of massive unemployment and poverty that affect and devastate working class people.
All right. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Quite an interesting conversation. That was General Industries Workers Union of South Africa President, Mr. Mametlwe Sebei. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.